Look, everybody, Ryan Moore is here for the 200th episode. Thank you, Ryan, for showing up. And I'm live. Wait a minute. There's that guy. Had to test the waters, make sure everything was going okay. So, Ryan makes a good point. Didn't realize it until I was setting up the episode as the 200th episode. That's pretty cool. Uh, I think it is. You all may just like, oh, geez, does this dude never give up? So, anyway, welcome, Ryan, back. Hey, Ryan's back. Uh, it's Thursday, June the 19th, and it's a holiday. And I didn't have to work, but I am on call. So it's an O'Doul's evening, but that's okay. So, I didn't really have an idea for the show tonight, and it wasn't because it was the 200th episode and I wanted it to be super special or anything. I just hadn't thought of anything. So I couldn't get, for some reason, my X account to log in on this computer anymore. So I had to go through a bunch of stuff, came up early, got it going. And it was just going through, some of the posts and I followed this account. I won't say ancient videos, historical videos, or historic vid, or something like that. Anyway, yeah, they have little stories about some things that happened in the past. Imagine that. And one of them was a dude's story of survival at sea, namely by himself. And I thought, well, that was really interesting. How long was it, you may ask? Well, it was like 177 days. I said, what? That can't be right. So, of course, I had to look it up. And I tried to get Grok 3 to do it for me through X. That was one of the main reasons I was trying to get back up on X on this computer, because I can't get Grok to respond to me like on the website. Yeah, you could do it 178 days. We'll go through this dude's story and we'll look at, he set the record inadvertently. Of course, he didn't set out to do that. We'll look at how he ended up in the water and when it was. And it's kind of a strange, everything like that strange. But it's, I don't know. I think it would be easy to give up. Now, very early in the history of the show, I had a lady come on and talk about the Indianapolis, and secretly carried the bomb parts for Little Big Man or Big Story Told or whatever the H bomb was, and it got shot and sunk, and those gentlemen stayed in the water, but it wasn't for 178 days. But they were just floating in there. But luckily, this guy had found a raft. And we'll look at his story and then we'll look at another one. And I just think it would be so easy to give up. You think you're out there and it's like, man, you can't see anything. Imagine that. And if anybody's ever been on a cruise, I haven't. There's Garthok. Hey, guess what? It's the 200th episode. Woo, dude. I've never been on a cruise, but I can imagine I've been offshore quite a distance where the land, was just a little kind of sliver of stuff on the horizon. And it's kind of spooky. It really is, because I can imagine, looking all the way around 360 degrees and not seeing anything but water. Nothing but water. And I've seen a lot of movies, of course, oceans and all that stuff, and it's just nothing but water and sky. And I think that would just be eerie, and to know that you were alone and you didn't have a way of, propelling yourself or, navigating, you were just at the mercy of the currents, would be, insane. So how did this guy end up inadvertently setting a record for solo survival at sea? I'm just double checking. Oh, I'm sorry, 133 days. I was giving him a little more credit. 133 days, that he survived. So let's see. I'll let you read it too, because I know some people read faster than I do. You could do 134 days. I bet you could. You're resourceful. You got an awesome, outlook on life. You could say, hey, you know what? I can't wait to get back to work. If I just make it another day, if I just make it another hour, I can get back to work. I could do that. So you could do 134 days by yourself with nobody to talk to but you and the birds and the fishes and the sharks and the mermaids. What's those other things that live in the bottom? The kraken? Is that the one? The giant octopi, something? Kraken? I think that's the one. Let's see if we can find this. There it is. Look at that. Wow. What happened to me? Anybody experience storms last night? I think I did this morning. Woke me up. Woke the dogs up. So my day off, I just got up. Sounds like a vacation if you don't have to talk to anyone. Well, and you had ramen. If you had ramen, you didn't have to talk to anybody. Good to go. Good to go. All right, here we go. So, as you can tell, this gentleman's name was Poon Lim. That's right, Poon Lim. So he was a Chinese seaman who survived an incredible 133 days alone on a raft in the South Atlantic during World War II. So this was a long time ago. That makes it even more interesting because there wasn't, we'll look at this other guy who was more modern, but there wasn't any kind of really modern equipment to help him survive on this raft that he came upon. So, November 23rd, let's see. I'm interested to know, what is that? Where did he say it was? South Atlantic. What is the air temp in the South Atlantic Ocean during November? Okay. 73 is the average. Average rainfall, 2.13 inches. I guess that's during the whole month. Does that answer a little better? The Atlantic Ocean is the second largest of the world's 5 oceanic divisions with an area of 885,133 cubic meters. It covers approximately 17% of the Earth's surface. Blah, 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 blah. It says 73.53. I wonder if average high 73, average low 53. I mean, that sounds doable, right? I mean, if you're out there on a raft in the ocean, look at the ocean. Well, that ocean don't look too fun, does it? No, sir, it doesn't. All right, so November 23rd, 1942, Poon Lim was serving as the second mess steward. I guess he was like a waiter on the British cargo ship SS Ben Lomond when it was torpedoed and sunk by a German U-boat, U-boat 172, in the South Atlantic. The ship sank rapidly and most of the crew perished. Most of the crew. There's Robert. Hey! I didn't even notice. I was reading such a fantastic, mesmerizing story, Robert. I didn't notice that you'd popped into the chat. Welcome to the 200th episode of the show. You're making history right now, making history. All right, so Poon Lim managed to grab a life jacket. Smart dude. Always want to know where those are if you're on a ship. But was sucked underwater as the ship went down. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So, in the Titanic movie and all these other movies, they talk about, when the ship goes down under the water, if you're close by, as the ship goes down, it might suck you in and under the water. And apparently, it's what happened to him, even though he had a life jacket on, but it saved his life. Was sucked underwater as the ship went down. Eventually, he resurfaced. And now he says after 2 hours of swimming, I'm going to say he probably just was floating around going, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. He found an 8-foot wooden life raft with some initial supplies. So, 1942, British cargo ship, the life rafts were wooden. It floats. I'm all for it, Oh no. Ryan is depressed about the baseball game last night. I guess your team lost. Whoever that might have been. Lost what'd they lose? The pennant? I don't know. They just lost the game though. Probably. Yes. Sad face. All right. So he finds this 8-foot wooden raft with some initial supplies. So, I guess, it said most of the crew perished. Apparently, I don't know what happened. Why was there one life raft and nobody on it? It was his lucky day because the life raft supplies were limited, consisting of some biscuits. Now, I think they call biscuits like crackers, a 40-liter jug of water, sugar cubes, chocolate, 2 smoke pots, an electric torch, Arkansas. Arkansas lost to LSU and got knocked out of the College World Series. Bummer, dude. Robert says it was a good game. I didn't watch it. Sorry. But I do like baseball. I used to watch the Braves. Pretty interesting. All right, so where was it? Chocolate, 2 smoke pots. What is a smoke pot? Now, I know, I don't want to hear it, but do you think they carried weed on the life raft? They probably should have, but I don't think they did. Huh. Okay. Smoke pots in 1942. It says they were designed to produce smoke for deception purposes. So, yeah, electric torch, my guess, Garthok, is they're talking about a flashlight. I mean, I wouldn't swear to that, but smoke pots are apparently what they sound like. I would think they would be in the raft to be used for signaling, right? If you had a smoke pot on a raft, I would think it was so you could light it during the day and airplanes and ships could see you. So we had chocolate, 2 smoke pots, an electric torch, and flares. Poon Lim, who was not a strong swimmer, tied a rope from the raft to his waist to prevent him from being washed overboard. Now, at the end, well, let's just go ahead. Let me jump on down here. I'm going to bypass all this junk. I argued with Gemini again because I had to use Gemini to produce this image for my thumbnail. Let me jump down here. There is Poon Lim's raft. Now, it's an 8-foot, so I guess, I mean, that doesn't look 8 foot to me. I mean, unless he's a really big dude, this doesn't look 8 foot. So, well, maybe they had, when you'd call it a torch, maybe it was a big battery with the light portion of it bolted onto the top or something, and it wasn't, maybe it just illuminated light like a lantern or something. I don't know. Let's just see. In 1942, what was known as an electric torch? What the heck was that? Operation torch. Okay. No, that's not. What? What? In 1942, what was known as an electric torch? How in the heck did it get Operation Torch? Huh. In 19, what was an electric torch? Let's just, what was? What the? All right, history of British Army torch flashlight through WW2, WW1. All right, so it was some type of flashlight. Yep, okay. Some type of flashlight. But you'll notice later, okay, so there was his raft. So he, was pretty ingenious, get the tarp up there. I don't know what this section back here was. That's kind of out, But it was pretty, big, I guess, deep. All right, so let's go back up. Where were we? Whoop. 2 smoke pots. All right. He tied the rope around his waist, preventing him from being washed overboard. So when his initial water supply ran out, he became adept at collecting rainwater using the canvas covering of his life jacket. So it says of his life jacket, but if you remember the daggone picture, he had a huge canvas tarp over his raft. Yeah, Robert, Wilson was, was Wilson a volleyball or a soccer ball? I can't remember. So why would he use the covering of his life jacket to collect water when he had that big, looks like a big, canvas tarp over his raft? Seems like that would be the way to do it, right? You catch a lot more rainwater. So for food, he fashioned a fish hook from a spring in his flashlight. So now they call it a flashlight. Before they called it an electric torch. And a fishing line from unraveled hemp rope. So he was pretty ingenious. I think it was a soccer ball or a volleyball. But if you'd asked me before Robert said that, I would have said soccer ball. Hmm. Dun, 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 dun. We'll ask it. What movie was that? Was it Castaway? What type of ball was Wilson? Hmm. All right, so I guess it was a volleyball. Castaway. Oh, jeez, almighty heavens to Betsy, Murgatroyd. So it was a volleyball used as a prop in 2000 film Castaway, sold at auction for $308,000. The ball is depicted as Tom Hanks' only friend on the deserted island, and it became his most prized possession. So didn't he also keep? He was like a FedEx airplane, cargo airplane pilot. Didn't he? Uh, didn't he keep one of the packages that washed up on the beach? And then when he got back to civilization, he lost Wilson, but he kept a hold of the package somehow. And when he got back and did all that stuff, he hand delivered it to the lady that had bought it. Yeah, I thought he had. He was such a good employee. All right, back to my true original story. All right, so he made a fish hook out of the spring out of his flashlight or electric torch, and he would do the rope. The string was out of his hemp rope. He used crushed hardtack as bait. Okay, so now we got to find out what hardtack was. What is hardtack? Pilot bread is a type of dense cracker, all right, made from flour, water, and sometimes salt. It has a long shelf life and has been used for sustenance during long sea voyages, land migrations, and military campaigns. All right, so he had hardtack, he had cracker. Cowboy hard bread. Okay. So he used that. I guess maybe broke off pieces of it, made like a little dough ball. So he caught smaller fish, and guess what? He'd use the smaller fish for bait for bigger fish. He also learned to catch seabirds, sometimes using rotting fish remains as bait to attract them, and drank their blood when water was scarce. So was not ever have been out to sea. I wonder why are seabirds out in the middle of the ocean? Meaning, you know, I thought birds basically tried to stay closer to land. Uh, you think seagulls go out in the middle of the ocean and just kind of hang out there, eating little fish and floating on the water? Right, right. But he's on a raft, you know, and they've got to be out there to see him. Now, yes, he was on a ship. The ship sinks. Birds look around and go, "Oh crap, man! There's no more ship. Let's just go home." Or do they look around and go, "Well, hey, look at that little dude. Let's go down and see if he has anything." And then he catches them, cracks their little necks, pops off their heads, drinks their blood like, water. Does he eat the bird raw? You know, 100 miles out. When did you go 100 miles out, like in a cruise? Did you go on a cruise and 100 miles? It seems like an awful lot. Seems like an awful lot out there. I mean, like, dude, 100 miles out to sea is like from here to Knoxville, right? Pretty close. At least it's Sevierville. Just seems like a long way. And I've never thought about that before. You go on a cruise, I think a cruise just kind of staying, hopping and skipping and jumps from islands, but not really very, 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 very far off the shore. Deep sea fishing offshore many years ago. Holy crap, I'd tell you, look, Captain, take me back 100 miles. Wow. How deep was it? Do you remember how deep they said it was there? Was it like, 100 miles deep too? I don't know. Gee. So, Garthog, could you imagine being out there in an 8-foot raft with a tarp over your head and hard crackers to eat and your waters ran out? Woo, buddy, not me. All right. So we'd catch small fish, use them for bait for bigger fish, and then he'd lure seabirds in. Uh, well, was it flat? Like a lake, or was there swells, or were there white caps? And I guess you could hear it slapping up against the side of the boat, right? Uh, so I don't know. He killed the seabirds, and he catch fish. I mean, it doesn't say he cooked it. He had 2 smoke pots, but that's not for cooking. He had flares, but those aren't for cooking either. So I'm guessing. I mean, it didn't say he had a knife or anything. We were in a 45-foot boat. That's not big. That's not big. 45 foot's not big. Not to be 100 miles out. I went scuba diving one time. That's probably the furthest I've ever been out. But we were only in 90 feet of water. And so I had to go do my certification dive off the Florida coast. But I mean, I could still see the sliver of land, but we were out, pretty far. And like I said, though, it was only 90 feet to the bottom. So, yeah. So I guess he was eating fish raw. I mean, he had to have been eating sushi all those days. And could you eat birds raw? I don't know, man. All right. So later on in his agony, he caught a shark using bird remains as the bait. When he hauled it aboard, it attacked him, and he used the water container to beat it to death. He then drank its liver blood to quench his thirst and dried its fins in the sun. So maybe he was drying he had sugar cubes, but he didn't have salt. So Garthok says we lost sight of land after the first 20 miles. That's what I've been saying. It's far enough, dude. Right here is good. So he dried the fins in the sun. Do you think he dried the fins to eat them? I mean, so many unanswered questions. All right, here's your question. You've got birds, and you're drinking their blood, and they're using their rotting remains to attract seabirds down or catch sharks with them. Do you think there's flies out there? All right, so you lay your rotting bird guts out on the side of your raft. Do flies come and land on them? Or house flies, blowflies, rotting fish, dead bird flies? Call them what you want. Are there flies out there? Huh. Interesting question. Right. So Garthon says shark jerky, but he didn't have anything to cure it with. You think he just, and I don't know, it doesn't say anything about having a knife. How did he get to the liver? How did he drink just the liver blood? Lots of unanswered questions. Okay. He kept track of the days by tying knots in a rope and maintained his physical condition by what? Swimming around the raft when the sea was calm. No, sir. You got an 8-foot raft, dude. Do some push-ups, do some leg raises, do some squats, but don't get in the water. You caught one shark, you've got bird parts floating around in the water close by. Man, don't get in the water and flail around, because it said he wasn't a good swimmer. So he does what he's not good at in the water where things can eat him are. Not very smart. Not very smart. All right. He faced immense psychological challenges, included being spotted by other vessels and planes, a freighter, a U.S. Navy patrol plane, and even another German U-boat that did not rescue him, possibly mistaking him for a Japanese sailor. Why? Why can't, well, or fearing a trap. I guess the U.S. Navy, would they just bypass, even though it was a Japanese? They thought it was a Japanese. Wouldn't they want to pick him up? Maybe he's the dang rear admiral of the Japanese Navy that they tossed overboard. I don't know. Why wouldn't you pick anybody up? You see a raft, you possibly know there's something on it. Why can't you go in and check it out? Trap? Maybe. Maybe a trap. I might be able to see that. So, after 133 days adrift, April 5th, 1943, we went in November. Let's see, what day in November? The 23rd, so the end of the month. So December, January, February, March, April. So 4 months basically in the ocean by himself. So April 5th, 1943, as he noticed the water color changing and more birds indicating he was nearing land, he was finally spotted and rescued by 3 Brazilian fishermen off the coast of Para, Brazil. He had drifted approximately 750 miles westward and had lost about 20 pounds, but was able to walk shortly after being brought ashore. Poon Lim became a celebrity. King George VI awarded him the British Empire Medal for his courage and resourcefulness. All right. His survival techniques were incorporated into Royal Navy survival manuals. After the war, he immigrated to the United States. I bet he did it legally. And with the aid of Senator Warren Magnuson, received a special dispensation to gain citizenship in 1952 as a Chinese immigrant, as the Chinese immigrant quota had been filled. So in 1952, they had a quota on immigration, at least from China. But he got a special dispensation. He lived in Brooklyn, New York until his death in 1991 at the age of 72. When he was told he held the record for the longest time adrift alone at sea, he humbly stated that he hoped no one would ever have to break it. So that's pretty cool. So he was Chinese, working on it was a British cargo ship in 42. Right. So that was in 1942. And they didn't have a lot. So my next little question was, what's another story of lone survival at sea? And Gemini, who I was asking, because why? I can't get freaking Grok 3 to work for me. I don't know why it hates me up here. It likes me downstairs, but it hates me up here. All right, so the next one is Stephen Callahan. Okay, so Stephen Callahan was 76 days in the Atlantic in 1982. So we've skipped 40 years. We're 40 years more advanced now. Okay. He was an experienced American sailor and naval architect. He was attempting a single-handed transatlantic race in his self-designed and built sloop, Napoleon Solo. Let's see what that bad boy looked like. Huh. Napoleon Solo was an actor too. What was that, Stephen Callahan? Well, is this it? Maybe that was it. It doesn't have the name on it, but it was kind of a small sailing vessel. There you go. I think that was it. Or if it wasn't, it was really daggone close. Get you squared up again here. All right. So, and Han had built he had a sloop, called Napoleon Solo. 6 days out from Canary Islands, his boat was severely damaged, likely by a collision with a whale during a night storm. Yeah, Robert. He looked kind of like Robinson Crusoe. And he didn't have a Swiss family. Maybe not. More likely with the collision with the whale during a night storm. And then Napoleon Solo quickly began to sink. All right, so Callahan managed to escape into a small 6-person inflatable life raft, taking with him a meager emergency kit. The kit contained some food, navigation charts, a short spear gun, flares, a torch, and 3 solar steels for producing drinking water. He also retrieved a sleeping bag and a cushion. So, in 40 years, things had improved for a lone survivor at sea. So he had a 6-person raft, but it was inflatable, not made out of wood, which inflatables scare me because if you puncture it, bad news. He had some food, navigational charts. I guess it's nice to know where you're not or where you want to go, but I don't know. Maybe it showed the currents. A short spear gun, very, very much needed. I'm hoping it had a rope on the spear. Flares, a torch, and 3 solar steels for producing drinking water. For 76 days, Callahan drifted westward across the vast Atlantic Ocean, carried by the south equatorial current and trade winds. He covered approximately 1,800 nautical miles. Now, our Poon dude, he traveled approximately 715 miles, 1,200 kilometers. And this guy went 3,300 kilometers in almost half the time. That's really weird. That's really weird. Huh. His primary source of fresh water came from solar steels and collecting rainwater. He learned to maximize their output, providing him with just over a pint of water per day on average. After his initial meager supplies ran out, Callahan became a master at fishing. He primarily ate mahi-mahi and tigerfish, which he speared along with flying fish that landed in his raft. So, Garthog, when you were out there in the ocean deep sea fishing, could you just look over the side of the boat and look down and see fish? Back when you were in the Merchant Marines, you could fish. You can't fish now? Oh, that's right, you can't. I remember. I've been to Stills Creek with you fishing. You would die, starve to death. But see, I don't understand. You don't really see fish. Did see sharks circling whenever we would reel one in. So I'm just wondering how he was catching, fish with a spear gun. 400 feet of water. Well, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? Just 400 feet? Huh. I would have expected it to be, thousands of feet. I don't know. Not just 400. I mean, 400's a lot. But when you're 100 miles out, you think it would be like really deep. I just, of course, never having done it. I don't know. He was spearing fish or catching fish. And then flying fish would jump into his raft. Crazy. Barnacles that grew on the raft, he'd eat those. And seabirds he managed to capture. He noted that an entire ecosystem developed around his raft, providing him with sustenance. So I guess birds from up above and fish from below, I'm assuming, see, hear, or smell this thing floating in the water and want to go check it out. So probably the fish would eat his poop and then he spared them. Would you want to eat the fish that just eat your poop? I'd want the dude that was that was next to the fish that was eating my poop. That's the fish I want. The one that's waiting in line. It's relatively shallow, closer to shore, and I guess 100 miles is closer to shore than however many miles are the continental shelf drops off. So, like I said, things floating in the water. He's throwing stuff overboard. Human waste, fish waste, all that kind of stuff. So I guess, things are coming closer to see what's going on, to eat, all that. He constantly repaired his deteriorating raft. Yep, that would scare me. It's inflated. Managed his limited supplies and maintained a strict routine to preserve his physical and mental health. What else did he have to do? He used his ingenuity to jerry-rig devices for collecting rainwater and even dissected one of his solar stills to understand its inner working. Couldn't you just wait till you got home and go to the library, because this was 82, and learn or take one apart when you got home? He spotted 9 ships during his ordeal, and while he fired flares and used the emergency position indicating radio beacon, none of them saw him. The EPIRBSs were not satellite monitored at the time. Apparently they are now. And he was in too isolated of an area for his signals to be reliably detected. But it seems like ships that you could see would be close enough to detect the signals, right? Or the detection signals on land and not on ships that might be passing by? No. So he was rescued on April 20th, 1982 on his 76th day adrift. He finally spotted lights from the island of Marie Galante, or Gallant, southeast of Guadeloupe. The next day, fishermen picked him up just offshore, drawn to his raft by the concentration of birds attracted to the fish circling it. Callahan lost about a third of his body weight and suffered from severe saltwater sores, but otherwise recovered remarkably well. His incredible story became the subject of his best-selling book, Adrift, 76 Days Lost at Sea, which remained on the New York bestsellers list for 36 weeks. His experience has been studied and shared widely, even influencing the film Life of Pi, which I think I may have seen, for which he served as a technical advisor. Callahan's story highlights a critical role of resourcefulness, determination, and systematic approach to problem solving in extreme survival conditions. So let's see if we can look up. Look at that nice face. Somebody froze me right in the middle of my thing there. Life of Pi trailer. Let's see if we can look at this. No. That's not at all what I was thinking of. That's the dude that's trapped on the boat with the line. How is that even related to while and even influencing the film Life of Pi? Okay. All right, let's see. What was I thinking of? Movie about Lost at Sea Survival. All right, let's see. Screen Rant. All right, here we go. This is about him, apparently.
In January 1982, yachtsman Stephen Callahan, 30 years old, departed from one of Canary Islands on the Napoleon Solo, a 6.5-meter sloop he designed and built himself. He headed for Antigua when he dropped out of the race in La Coruña, Spain. In a growing gale, 7 days out, his vessel was badly holed by an unknown object. By the way, in his book, Callahan writes that he suspects the damage occurred from a collision with a whale during a night storm and became swamped. Although it didn't sink outright due to watertight compartments Callahan had designed into the boat. Unable to stay aboard Napoleon Solo as it filled with water and was overwhelmed by breaking seas, Callahan escaped into a 6-person Avon inflatable life raft, measuring about 6 feet across. He stood off in the raft, but managed to get back aboard several times to dive below and retrieve a piece of cushion, a sleeping bag, and an emergency kit containing, among other things, some food, navigation charts, a short spear gun, flares, torch, solar stills for producing drinking water, and a copy of Sea Survival, a survival manual. Before dawn, a big breaking sea parted the life raft from Napoleon Solo and Callahan drifted away. The raft drifted westward with the south equatorial current and the trade winds. After exhausting the meager food supplies he had salvaged from the sinking sloop, Callahan survived by catching food. He mainly ate mahi-mahi and triggerfish, which he speared, along with flying fish, barnacles, and birds that he captured.
Obviously, in that situation, you're on a pretty much an all-protein diet. Although I made sure that I ate pretty much all parts of the fish, because organ meats and things might have vitamins and things that the flesh didn't. And I would eat as much fresh as I could as soon as I could, in part because it takes fluid to digest proteins in food, and the drier it gets, the more cooked it is, the more moisture that would take. And I had only about maybe a pint and a quarter or so of water a day, where I wasn't really swallowing water. I was just take a sip and it would be sort of absorbed by my mouth. So dehydration was a really difficult problem for me. But if the fish were pretty big, so I would strip them up and hang them up to dry, which essentially is cooking them. So I had this like hardtack for days when I didn't have fresh fish. But I also would like to note this, that, I thought, oh my God, you read these survival stories and go, oh, I could never do that. I could never eat this. I could never eat uncooked fish or whatever. Well, besides the fact that sushi is very popular now, and I like sushi, I found it was very interesting how your body changes your psychology, because the longer the voyage went, the less I could taste salty stuff. So if I had a little bit of saltwater pollution in freshwater, I would still drink it. But I was able, the salt water tasted less and less salty as time went on, and the flesh of the fish tasted less and less salty, so it wasn't as delicious as it was. But what I really looked forward to, what my body really wanted, and what I wanted, were all the fresh fish guts. Give me a fresh fish liver. Give me a fresh fish eyes. Oh, those are little nuggets of fluid and things like that. And I know it sounds kind of horrible now, but if you're ever stuck in that situation and you're actually starving, your body will change your psychology.
The sea life was all part of an ecosystem that followed him for 3,300 kilometers across the ocean. He collected drinking water from 2 solar stills and various jury-rigged devices for collecting rainwater, which together produced on average just over a pint of water per day. Callahan's use of an emergency position indicating radio beacon and many flares didn't trigger a rescue. Theirs was not monitored by satellites at the time, and he was in too empty a part of the ocean to be heard by aircraft. Ships didn't spot his flares. While adrift, he spotted 9 ships, most in the 2 sea lanes he crossed, but from the beginning, Callahan knew that he couldn't rely upon rescue but instead must, for an undetermined time, rely upon himself and maintaining a shipboard routine for survival. He routinely exercised, navigated, prioritized problems, made repairs, fished, improved systems, and built food and water stocks for emergencies. On the eve of April 20th, 1982, he spotted lights on the island of southeast of Guadeloupe. The next day, on Callahan's 76th day float in the raft, fishermen picked him up just offshore, drawn to him by birds hovering over the raft, which were attracted by the ecosystem that had developed around it. During the ordeal, he faced sharks, raft punctures, equipment deterioration, physical deterioration, and mental stress. Having lost a third of his weight and being covered with scores of saltwater sores, he was taken to a local hospital for an afternoon, but left that evening and spent the following weeks recovering on the island and while hitchhiking on boats up through the West Indies. During his journey, Callahan experienced a few positive elements aside from suffering, describing the night sky at one point as a view of heaven from a seat in hell. He still enjoys sailing in the sea, which he calls the world's greatest wilderness. Since his survival drift, he's made dozens of additional offshore passages and ocean crossings, most of them with no more than 2 other crew. In the making of the 2012 movie Life of Pi, director Ang Lee asked Callahan to be a consultant on living aboard a life raft. Callahan made lures and other tools seen in the movie. Callahan recounted his ordeal in the best-selling book Adrift, 76 Days Lost at Sea.
Well, there you have it. I mean, that was pretty much a video narrative of what Gemini told here with some pretty good images and stuff. So, Ryan, if you're still here, you still think you could do 134 days? I think it'd be extremely, extremely hard. And I think, just my guess, is that they were, now you're sure you can do 135? All right. But I would guess they had relatively pretty good weather. Because I can't imagine that these rafts, so there's Poon Lim's raft, and then there's Callahan's raft. Of course, now, this isn't how he was rescued. See, this is where he's got all this gear on. This is when he was, I don't know, some other time. But this was, I guess, the same type of raft that he had. But I can't imagine these rafts, surviving very big swells. I mean, the more modern one would stand a better chance just because it's fully covered. Looks like it's got a full, tarp system on it. This one, I mean, a 2 or 3 foot wave's going to be crashing over that bad boy, and it's going to be tilting up. It could flip it over. I just can't imagine if you had any kind of bad weather, any kind of storm at sea, that either one of those rafts would, keep you alive. So, I don't know. But kudos to them. I mean, they all had luck on their side. Poon Lim probably more so, because he was just thrown into the ocean, after his ship sunk with a life jacket, and after being in the water a couple hours, came across an empty raft with some supplies on it. So I'm assuming, they had them on the ship that way on purpose. Maybe some of them were cut loose, by other crew members, and they weren't able to get to them all, or one, started drifting away before they were ready for it. So I don't know. But, with Callahan, it talked about him. He put the life raft out and had a rope attached to his sloop, whatever, because it wasn't sinking. He had built watertight compartments in it, so it wasn't completely sunk. And he could go back in and then retrieve all these items later. Has this been fact checked? I don't know. The Callahan, he wrote a book, and and that was like in 1982. So, but now Poon Lim, I don't know. I'm thinking it's pretty legit. I'm suspicious of some stuff, but I think old Poon Lim, yeah, I think he was the dude too. All right, fellas. Appreciate everybody showing up for my 200th episode. No, I don't think so. Tang was the drink that the astronauts took with them. The astronauts was drinking some of that Tang. Yep. Poon Tang. I don't know. Poon Lim. Yum. Ryan, have you ever had any Tang? I don't think they still make Tang. If it was made, RFK Jr. would have it thrown out because it's probably full of bad, bad mojo. Tang is still available in its iconic powdered form, which was the original format when it was first introduced. The powdered version of Tang is a convenient and easy to use format that allows consumers to mix the drink according to their taste preferences. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. There it is. There it was in a jar. Yeah. Huh. Pretty cool. If you make it into a jug, you can put its name on the side. What's here? Uh-oh, what is this? The Untold Truth of Tang. That looks like margarita salt on that thing. All right. Maybe the next show will be The Untold Truth of Tang. I think the commercials always had a monkey. Huh. Did they? Okay. Is that like a trunk monkey? Let's see.
Most people know that orange-flavored Tang is the energy breakfast drink. Has rich, natural taste, even more vitamin C than orange juice. But Tang also develops a sense of responsibility. No one should leave in the morning without his vitamin C. Fact is, Tang was chosen to go to the moon with the Apollo astronauts. Tang, as nourishing here on Earth as in outer space.
No monkey.
Open up!
We want those allowance game cards from Tang. Read my lips.
You know, those game cards, you match out to win a free allowance for a year.
Tang has $1 million to give away, man.
A free game card and rules send self-addressed stamped envelope to Game Card, P.O. Box 693.
All right. So no monkeys in that one. No monkey. No monkeys. Okay. Bye, Garthog. Appreciate you coming by. There was a monkey. I don't doubt you. Like a trunk monkey. I don't doubt you. All right, Ryan, I appreciate you coming by. Come back more often. Robert, thanks for coming. 200th episode. Woo-hoo. All right. If you made it this far, you haven't watched it live, but you're watching it, hey, hey for the monkeys. That's right. Let's do the hey, hey for the monkeys. Let's keep monkeying around. If you made it this far, you watched the video, I appreciate you. Like, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends, neighbors, and loved ones. Tune in Thursday nights. I'm on my staycation, so watch out for some films that I might do documenting my staycation escapades. They'll be boring. I started cleaning the gutter. If you watch, go back on my channel and watch last year's staycation. Probably do the same kind of junk, right? Except I don't have any dirt to haul, but I might get some dirt to mess with. You never know. You never know. All right. Thanks, guys, gals, people out there in internet land. Later on.